How is it that this rundown 600 square foot cabin in the woods making just $17,000 a year is now projected to generate $120,000 annually, replacing an entire 9-to-5 job? And why the heck would anyone pay $420,000 for said cabin to begin with? Because to hit that $120,000 mark, this cabin would need to go from barely scraping $1,400 a month to bringing in $10,000 a month, or about $333 every single day. The questions that we need to answer today are, how do you turn around a failing rental? What do you focus on when you find something like this? And what do the numbers look like for a project of this size, financing, construction, and revenues? I spent the last few weeks digging into the numbers, taking a road trip, and staying at the property, and interviewing the crazy couple behind it all. I even had the chance to share with my buddy Rob Solo from the Rob Built channel. And I did all of this to learn the secrets of how a young adventure couple with no experience were able to outperform established professionals. Because there are 5 key moves that they made, and it's not about being lucky or born with a bunch of money. Now, I stumbled across their listing when I was chatting with our community, and Cat Chau quietly sharing their new listing. Now, these two aren't exactly strangers. They've actually been a part of my Land Hacker and Host Camp community. Link down below if you want to check it out for $1. They've been showing up for live sessions, classes, coaching calls for several months before locking onto this property. They're great students and members, so I know that they follow the process. But I hadn't seen anything on the property yet. Wait, that's their cabin? Now, as a fellow investor and builder, I've built and have been part of dozens of turnaround projects and high-end properties. I don't get this. What would get first-timers to buy the worst-performing cabin on the block, surrounded by dozens of newer, flashier Airbnbs literally across the street? In a saturated, hyper-competitive market, this will definitely be the definition of a tiny fish in a big pond. So naturally, I did what I always do. I started digging into the data and numbers. But first, you need to see what the market average actually looks like. It's not just bad, it's ugly. When I ran the numbers using the median home price in the area, you'd be looking at a net loss of $25,000 a year, or about $2,000 per month down the drain. So naturally, I had to ask, why would anyone in their right mind invest here? And then I found it. One listing, the top performing cabin in the entire market. And holy smokes, even using conservative estimates, factoring in realistic purchase price and rental budget, this place is pulling in around $152,000 with net profits of $110,000. That's more than $9,000 a month in profit. Okay, that's just flat out impressive, but we don't invest based on unicorns. But there's something else on the surface that doesn't quite make sense to me. If this market potential is that good, why was this property put up for sale? And why hasn't anyone optimized on this already? There was definitely more to the story. First, the Mount Baker and Snoqualmie National Forest gets around 5 million visitors a year. Just to put that in perspective, that's the same number of visitors as the Grand Canyon. And second, this spot is just a 2-hour drive from Seattle and only 20 minutes from Bellingham. So yeah, high traffic for sure. This isn't just a property with potential to capture tourism overflow. It's 35 minutes from Mount Baker ski area, one of the few ski resorts in the US that's not a destination resort. Why is that important? This means there's no ski in or ski out village, no big hotels, no built-in lodging. And that is what makes this so brilliant. And that is what we call a symbiotic relationship between the mountain, forest, and the local economy. Spotting that kind of relationship between recreation and lodging is what makes this market stand out. When I ran the numbers for comparable homes in this area, they were solid. But what I'm really interested in, it's a lot higher. And that was enough for me to get properly intrigued. I really want to see this place in person. So I booked it. Booked. So here's what it's like when you arrive. You pull up to a cabin that looks nothing like its neighbors. It's tucked away off of the street a little bit, private, but still just 35 minutes from the slopes. From the curb, it is absolute Instagram gold. I mean, take a look at this here. You walk in and the place feels like home. It's not too big, not too fancy, just right. Has a full kitchen, cozy living room, a fireplace that actually makes you want to stay in, and I can attest it makes the cabin super warm and cozy extremely fast. It's probably mine and Sarah's favorite amenity. But here's the moment that hit me, the mudroom. I know you're probably like, Kat, you're crazy, a freaking mudroom. But the heated floors in the entryway, plenty of hooks, a place to sit down and take off your muddy or snowy boots, ski holders, a boot dryer. It's not just thoughtful, it is actually extremely practical. That's the kind of detail people remember, and it's the chef's kiss to the property. And then when you step into the backyard, this is where the story really takes off. You've got the cedar hot tub, the magazine-worthy fire pit area, a hand-built sauna, and even an outdoor shower, all surrounded by native plants for super low maintenance. This isn't just an amenity checklist, it's a whole vibe, a moment, or multiple moments. When I got there, I noticed something right away that I couldn't see from the satellite views on Google Maps. This was genius. Here's the lot. It's about a 1/4 acre. Originally, it was just the house, a small deck and a bunch of trees and overgrowth. But they created 2 distinct living areas, a cozy indoor home and a fully built out outdoor experience that wraps around the entire cabin. Not only does that give guests more to do, it's a psychological design trick that makes the space feel way bigger than it actually is. And if you compare it to neighboring listings, most of them don't even come close. This is called storytelling through property, and it takes serious vision and strategy to pull it off correctly. And that's the first clue from Cat Chau, starting with the end in mind. And I recently learned that before they even closed, Cat had already built out mood boards, docs, and an entire design plan before even getting started. Chau, he went full big brain and taught himself how to use a 3D design software with no background in it to start modeling every layout and furniture piece.
And it was a funny story of one day where I was like, I just have to get this out of my head. And I spent like 4 hours just creating this like PowerPoint deck of just, basically my vision board from all these A-frames.
It was literally hilarious because the other cat's like, I gotta get it out of my head. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I blacked out. And it was like 52 pages later, it's like, whoa, like everything.
They didn't want to wing it. They were planning for cash flow, tax savings, and long-term equity all before escrow closed. But what really got me is what comes next. Okay, so we just made it back. Actually, we came back a while ago, but I've been running numbers. But even after seeing everything in person, I still wasn't convinced that it would pencil for how much was spent on such a small home. Until I ran the numbers. Wait until you see what I found. These are the months that they have actually been operating and how much they've actually collected. These, May through October, are projections. And these are based off of our market and our comp and demographic analysis. But look here, this is actually how much it's showing that they're going to be making by month and then for their year, which is wild. And this is only in year 1. Once a property is established with high ratings, years 2 and 3 can see between a 10 to 25% growth, potentially hitting $72,000 in net profits by year 3, for a grand total of $190,000 in net profits over the first 36 months of the property going active. I want you to remember the $190,000. We're going to talk about that again. You need anywhere from 10 to 20 plus long-term rental doors to come close to this. Now, one of the secrets to this success is not being the big fish in a big pond, but being the right type of fish in the right pond. But then that begs the question, why aren't more people doing this? The deeper secret here is buried in the clue. Choose emotion over aesthetics. Most hosts chase design trends. Cat Chau chased feelings. Their goal? To create a space that made guests feel seen, inspired, and at peace. When I did a little more digging when I was talking to them, there was another part of their genius. Cat Chau knew their ideal guest better than anyone because they were their ideal guest. Young, fit, adventure-seeking professionals who craved weekend escapes into Washington's wild outdoors. And that insight led to one of the smartest real estate plays I've seen in a while. See, they knew the competition in the market, and out of the 700 plus listings, only a couple dozen listings actually stood out or felt aligned to them. They literally focused on a design that would provide the best experience for their primary customers. Here's why this works. The majority of all the other listings are trying to be all things to all people, hoping they can capture the largest market possible. But what they end up doing is using generic strategies and design philosophies. In short, they don't really stand out. Okay, so when I sat down with Cat Chau, it became clear fast. Their original plan did not survive first contact with reality. Over-prepare, then pivot. Because once construction started, it felt like everything went wrong. Rotting framing, frozen pipes, a door that was literally sent super short and didn't even fit. The list goes on. But just classic renovation chaos. The reno budget, it started at $150,000, but it ballooned up to $230,000. That's a whopping $393 per square foot, which sounds insane, especially for a 585 square foot home. I mean, I can build a premium custom home at $400 a square foot, even in today's market. But here's the thing, with small homes, the per square foot cost will always look high. You still got baseline costs like permits, delivery, utilities, kitchens, bathrooms, whether you're building a 500 or 5,000 square foot home. And the real reason their numbers climbed, they invested big into the outdoor experience. All of that gets pulled into the math, so yeah, it inflates the per square foot number. But honestly, who cares? The real question is, what's the payback period on their out-of-pocket cash? That's the number that really matters. This is the stuff no one tells first-time builders and rehabbers. So they didn't just design a space, they designed an entire experience. Every layout, every material, every light switch told a story, and they tailored it to their ideal guest. And I mean, they even had yoga mats and stretching blocks. Sarah and I, we actually used them while we were there. Sarah didn't let me film us because she wasn't camera ready in the morning, but we used them, and they were an amazing add to our morning routine. The point is that they tailored the home to someone just like them. Some people call it Instagrammable. I call it moment designing, and Cat Chau nailed it. And if you're looking at designing something like this, I'm part of Moment Design Studios, where our interior designer and architect focuses on just these type of things. I use this type of designing in all my properties all the time. Link below if you want to learn more and get a quote for your design project. Now let's talk about how they actually finance this thing, because the numbers matter. First, they secured a conventional loan with 20% down. They could have gone 10%, but that would have meant mortgage insurance, and they wanted to avoid that. So that's $84,000 down with a 30-year loan at 6.5%, roughly $2,100 a month. Then they pulled another $115,000 from savings and investments to cover furniture, fixtures, and renovations. And to close the final gap, because they realized that there were more issues than they originally thought and their scope grew, they borrowed $150,000 from private investors on a 7-year balloon note amortized over 30 years at 4% or $716,000 a month. All in, they were working with $200,000 of their own money and then $2,800 a month in total loan servicing. So what's the million-dollar question here? Literally, how much is this property worth? To break even on equity, it needs to appraise at $680,000. That's what most people would be thinking, or an incredible $1,162 per square foot. Now, that might sound wild, which it is, but trust me, I've seen funky little cabins in way worse locations sell for $1,200 to $1,400 per square foot. This isn't as crazy as it sounds, because there are a lot of other factors like land, outdoor amenities, and income potential that needs to be taken into account. And we're not just guessing. In the next video, we're bringing in an actual professional appraiser to find out if this holds up. So if you're curious what this thing is really worth, you're gonna wanna subscribe and stick around. But the real question as investors isn't just what is it worth, it's this: when do we get our money back? And in this case, it's just approximately 3 years. To get to that number, we take their total cash investment, $200,000, and divide it by their pre-tax profits of $54,000, assuming zero growth. If we factor in growth, we can get their payback in under 36 months. Now, that's simply remarkable, especially considering the full gut job that they did and the 20% down. This wasn't just a normal reno, throw it on Airbnb type of project. It was an entire strategy. Which brings us to clue number 4, overinvest in the guest experience. Now, they got me super interested in the project, and I really studied this area. I found a lot of good listings, some even spectacular ones. But after staying at Cat Chau's cabin and comparing the data, their performance was so asymmetrical to their direct neighbors and peers, I knew I was still missing something. Their listing launched with nearly 100% occupancy, with the market average during that same time period around 42%. That's not just above average, that's an anomaly. When I compared the amenities, photos, guest reviews, and everything, here's what I found. These are the majority of the competitors in their market. Notice anything? Look at what happens when we put their listing into this lineup. Which one would you stop scrolling for and click on to book for you and your partner? Cat Chau's cabin wasn't just a clean, well-photographed home. It was a tailored wilderness retreat designed for a very specific type of guest. I know we talked about this already. The mudroom, fireplace, outdoor, everything that we had talked about before was planned with the intention designed to flow together like a story. The thing is, these weren't just upgrades. They were booking magnets. And it worked. They didn't just become super hosts, they got ranked in the top 1% of all hosts in the region within 60 days. Just to put that in perspective, there are nearly 800 listings and they're in the top 1% in 2 months. Guys, this is not a fluke. This is a design working as strategy. And that leads us to our last clue. Know your market better than anyone. And after driving nearly 12 hours round trip, staying at the property and interviewing the two of them, here's what made their story different. Cat Chau didn't guess. They ran the numbers hard. They really ran the numbers. They did the exact kind of research that we taught them. No winging it. No, I hope this works. They found that the average occupancy in this area was just 40%, but they knew they could do better and they proved it by focusing on the guest experience, design psychology, and operational efficiency. And that allowed them to hit near 100% occupancy right out of the gate. But there's one last thing that's still a brain twister about their property that I'll share with you after we break down the numbers. The purchase price ended up being $420,000. Renovation costs ballooned up to $230,000. Furniture and decor was at $31,000. So total project cost was $681,000. Estimated revenue this year is about $112,000, $120,000 with a peak of $150,000. Net income for the first year is $50,000 to $60,000 with a payback period of approximately 3 years before tax benefits or equity growth. And they did it with smart financing. 20% down on a conventional loan and a private investor loan of $150,000 to fund renovations and fixes. They are achieving these numbers and occupancy rates while getting completely booked out in the near future. These bookings right here, everything in the blue represents booked dates. But this is the twist that we haven't talked about yet. They are not even fully optimizing the income potential because they still block out dates for themselves and their friends to use the place. These are the dates on the calendar that are crossed out. They achieve their goal of a cash flowing asset and their own private getaway for themselves and their family. Now, if you're like Cat Chau, burned out, but you're ready to take a big swing, this is your roadmap. And you can go back and rewatch this video again. And if you want help building your own version, book a free call with me and my team. We're coaching and consulting, partnering up with people all over the world to design, build, and launch income properties that actually perform. Link's just down below. And if you're thinking about starting a new build or renovation, you gotta watch this next video where I break down the biggest prefab and builder scams I've seen. It could literally save you tens of thousands of dollars or just avoiding a sleazy scam. I'll see you in the next video. See ya.